Welcome once again to Point of View. My name is Johnny Johnston, and my guests tonight are Joan Freedman and Larry Casassa from the City Planners Department. Welcome to Point of View.
Thank you.
Joan, can you tell us what ward you represent?
Johnny, I represent Ward 5 in Fitchburg, and Ward 5 is that upper northeastern corner of the city. It abuts Lunenburg on one side and Ashby on the other. Ward 5 includes a great variety of areas. It represents a rural area. It represents our primary business area, which is the John Fitch Highway. Represents the college neighborhood. Also represents the area around Wallace Civic Center and Coolidge Park. Because of all of those many and varied characteristics, I do believe it's one of the most complex wards in Northwestern County.
And how long have you represented this particular district?
I'm into my 6th year now, John.
And of course, when re-election time comes around, you'll be seeking re-election.
I've taken my papers out already.
Okay.
Much to my family's dismay. I'm taking them out again.
Larry, before I come to you, let me just remind our viewers at home that the call-in numbers are on your screen right now. If you look there, 343-3130, and you can call and ask any questions that you may desire tonight. Larry, you're from the City Planner's Office.
That's correct.
And what do you do there?
Well, my responsibilities are to work on the administration of the Community Development Block Grant Program, as well as work with the administration of various federal and state grant programs. And we, as an office, are involved in a variety of activities on behalf of the city, including general planning and neighborhood strategic planning. And we try to use the federal and state grant resources that we have to implement a number of those neighborhood plans, which really is why we work. We've been working very closely with Councilor Freedman and with the neighborhood association in Ward 5B, as well as with the area businessmen, because that's an area that we've been concentrating on doing a lot of needed improvement work.
And being from the City Planner's Office, what are some of the improvements that you have planned for this coming year?
Well, if we could focus for a minute on the plan that's up on the easel now. That is a detailed plan that was developed by the office's Geographic Information Systems computer, which enables us to actually get information on every single parcel within the city and to be able to plot maps like this to use as planning tools. For this particular plan, which is the neighborhood stabilization plan for the Lower Main Street and College neighborhood, we're illustrating the area that basically covers Pearl Street from Fitchburg State College down to the Main Street area, and that runs pretty much from Blossom Street over to Highland Street. Highland Ave. And that encompasses a very densely populated, lower-income neighborhood, and it also contains some old industrial sites, the Simons Building that people I'm sure are very familiar with, and quite a bit of housing stock that's in need of repair. This particular map illustrates a few different things. If you'll notice the parcels that are identified in red, those parcels are parcels that need substantial rehabilitation according to site surveys that we've done. The parcels that are marked in blue are parcels that need some improvement, and then the ones that are in green are ones that are currently considered to be in good condition. As you can see, there are quite a few red parcels there, which would indicate that there's a lot of need for rehabilitation in the neighborhood. There's also an area that shows the Green Corners Park area, which is going to be a subject, I guess, of discussion for improvements, as well as I had mentioned earlier, the Simons Building, and Fitchburg State College and its relationship to the neighborhood. Fitchburg State College has been very actively involved in working as a partner with the city to attempt to work out a means by which we could create a corridor that runs from the college down to Main Street that would be both more accessible to students, and that would be a safer corridor for students, and that would beautify the area between the two.
Right. Before we get back to improvements, Joan, I'd like to ask you a question. And are you considered a politician, or are you a non-politician?
I consider it a politician. First of all, I'm in elected office, so I would imagine that people would consider me a politician, but I don't consider that a bad word.
Right.
And I think that unfortunately over the past few decades that it has taken on that tone to it. But certainly I am an elected official. I am what I am. If people want to call me a politician, then so be it.
Now, you also represent the Congress Street area side of Fitchburg too, don't you?
That's correct.
Right.
That's
There have been some non-parking signs going up on that street, and there have been some concerns about that.
That's correct.
Can you address that tonight?
If you would like me to,
Of course, by all
certainly.
means.
The history on that is that an ordinance was passed many years ago for there to be no parking on the right-hand side of Congress Street from Lunenburg Street up to Pacific Street. Over a period of time, signs came down, either were stolen or through the weather and the elements just came down. And there were a number of complaints recently because of a number of businesses at the corner of Congress Street and Lunenburg Street. And because of the number of complaints, parking, noise, that somebody in our public safety departments went back into the books and realized that there was supposed to have been no parking along there all of this time, and the signs were put back up again. But the people who had moved into the area in the recent past, or maybe not even the recent past, maybe even 5 to 10 years, have been saying, well, you know, we've lived here all this time without the no parking signs. Why are they back up now? But the fact is that there was an ordinance there that did say that, you know, that those signs belong there. There is an effort now to take some of the signs down. So we're trying to find a compromise between the area along Congress Street that has got businesses and the area along Congress Street that is residential, that there could possibly be no parking along those parts where,
so in other words,
there are businesses.
Are you considering reversing the ordinance that was passed many years ago? Or
Are
what
we
are you
considering
considering?
we are at this point, there is a petition that was passed in yesterday,
I'm aware of that.
Although it has not made it to the City Council yet, that says that that they would like to do something about looking at the ordinance that's on the book now. Perhaps if we could strike some sort of a compromise with everybody in the area. There are some of the neighbors on Congress Street that want the signs up, and some of the neighbors want the signs down. We do try to keep everybody happy, but common sense has got to prevail at some point, and we are at this point trying to find a compromise for that.
Now, have you made a decision as it relates to the signs as to whether you, being the representative, the duly elected representative from that area, would want to have those signs continue to be up or to be taken down? I'm not asking you to say that tonight on the air, but I'm asking you if you have been thinking about it.
It would make some sense to me to have the signs to stay up along the areas where there are those businesses, around the areas of Norm's, around the areas of Peter's Battery Station. And because if not, the people that live on Congress Street that are across or next to those businesses really do get blocked in and really are exposed to a great deal of noise and inconvenience. But I think that from the area of the businesses up, that there is no need for it at this point.
Larry, before I come back to you, I want to ask you a political question, Joan, and that is, I've asked all the politicians that appear on Point of View the very same question, so you will not be immune at all. Why should the voters of your district re-elect you or send you back to City Hall?
Because I do a good job.
Anything else?
Is that, as I said, that Ward 5 is a very complex ward, and I think you have to have some sense of what a ward councilor does, and it's really tending to those basics, tending to the street signs, tending to the widening of streets, tending to things like the potholes, but also to have some sort of vision as to what you would like things to be like in 10 years and a direction that you would like to be the city, to have the city on another 25 years. And I think that the planning that has gone into all of the changes in the college area and the lower Main Street area have been some of the best work that has come out of this community probably in the past 10 years. I have been a part of all of that. I have been a part of changes in the school department. I am the one that has done legwork and all of the paperwork on getting a DARE officer to the city of Fitchburg.
Which is doing very well.
It's a wonderful program.
It is.
It is a wonderful, wonderful program. I've also been involved in the renovations of the high school, so that we have recently acquired our full accreditation again, which was a huge and looming cloud, I feel, over our entire city. I've also been enjoyed in civic activities such as First Night, the first time that the area has seen First Night, and those types of things that I think that add to the quality of life, as well as to tend to the details of improving everyday life for the citizens of Fitchburg. But I don't want to make sounding like a person being in office as if it's just all, really detailed business. I think that people want somebody that they feel can think on their feet, and they also want somebody that they feel that they can deal with. I'm not just dealing with the residents of the area, but I deal with people whose elderly parents live in the area. And want to know that they have somebody they can contact on behalf of their parents, somebody to be able to contact on behalf of their children's bus route to school, and that you need to be approachable and you need to send off messages of openness and kindness, and I think that I do that.
You're watching Point of View. My name is Johnny Johnston. My guests tonight are Joan Freedman and Larry Casassa from the City Planner's Office, and the numbers are on your screen right now. If you'd like to call and ask any question of these two folks, you may go right ahead and do that, 343-3130. Larry, from your office's point of view, what are you doing or what have you done to get federal funding or state funding to improve the city as a whole?
Well, we've certainly been kept abreast of all of the available funding sources that are out there, and whenever we see a resource that potentially has an application in the city, we usually notify the ward councilor who may be involved. We of course contact the mayor, and we have a discussion amongst ourselves as to what the feasibility of obtaining those funds might be. And we've been fairly successful over the past several years in attracting a number of federal and state grants that could be used to supplement the funds that the city has available to just basically maintain city services, and often don't cover for the costs of additional work that need to be done. In fact, a lot of our efforts have been focused on Ward 5, and of course I was prepared tonight to discuss some of the improvements that we'll worked on with Councilor Freedman in Ward 5. But we always keep an eye out for available resources that can help further the plans that we have to improve the city. And I think Ward 5 is an example of really a 2 or 3 year long effort that's finally coming to fruition, and that involves a lot of different improvement projects that are part of a tapestry, but actually all happened individually when they got started.
The city of Fitchburg is in dire need of improvements, and I'm sure you may be familiar with the Project Pride, I think it's called, downtown with Bob Fairbanks and the rest of the folks down there. What are some of the improvements that you think could best come to the city at this point in time?
Can I answer that?
Of course.
Because you mentioned Pride, and also because you asked me you asked us what we thought one of the biggest improvements that could happen in the city. The single most important thing that we need at this point is the connector from I-190.
Right.
This is a major building project, a major transportation project that we would certainly need to access funds from the state and federal government. There are plans on the book to connect the Lower Main Street area to a spur off of I-190, which is now in South Leominster. I honestly believe that without that connector, that we will become more and more isolated. We have pockets of Fitchburg that are still very, very viable, still very nice communities, very nice areas to do some shopping, but geography seems to be ruling at this point. We lost our registry in Fitchburg to the Leominster area because they tell us of geography. We're losing the acute care facility of our hospital because we're being told of geography, because Fitchburg is not easy to get to. We're having some difficulty attracting business, not only because we don't have a major industrial park yet, but again, because Fitchburg is a hard place to get to by car. So I feel that without that connector, that it will be very difficult to bring Fitchburg back up to the power in central Massachusetts that it once was.
Right, you're talking about a connector coming into Fitchburg, but with this particular connection, would you not say that you would have an enormous increase in traffic? Are you prepared to deal with that?
Well, hopefully we have an increase in traffic.
Point of view, would it not be? An increase in traffic, meaning you'd also have increase in business, increase in crimes, maybe vandalisms or whatever it is, accidents or whatever you may have. Are your office planning to deal with the influx of traffic that would be coming in?
Well, actually,
if it becomes a reality.
If the intermodal, if we're able to get a connector to Fitchburg, the first thing it would do is it would ease the traffic problems that currently exist, so that even if there were no increase in traffic flow, what it would do is it would make it more convenient for people in Fitchburg to live in Fitchburg and at the same time commute to work and get access to Route 2 and to other critical areas. So it stabilizes what's there presently, because we've been seeing some out-migration of people in Fitchburg because of the lack of access. If in fact we were so fortunate as to be faced with the problem that down the road it was so successful in generating business and generating traffic from outside the city, yes, we would have to accommodate the traffic demands that would be placed on the city from that kind of success. But we don't have quite that much foresight at this point.
Right.
What we're trying to do is alleviate an existing condition that is preventing the lifeblood of commerce from getting into the city. And we're trying to open up that channel so that Fitchburg has a chance to compete on an even playing field with some of the surrounding communities.
We would like to show you where that is planning on coming up. Larry, perhaps, I think we lost our camera.
Okay, no, go right ahead.
Is that the spur is planned to come in up off of Lower Main Street. So
we'll just ask our cameraman to get a shot of that.
Okay.
Of the map.
Over here.
You can go on talking.
And it would be coming in through this area and joining up onto the Lower Main Street area, right in through there. And that is the particular area that we are spending all of this time and attention on. It's also the area of the proposed intermodal center, which is very much on the books at this point. The intermodal center is
This map doesn't
right
really
here.
show the structure where the intermodal facility would be located, but it's where I'm pointing right now by the parking area. There's currently a one-story building there that would be demolished. In fact, that particular project is fairly well underway. The final design is going to be out, I believe, by August 1st, and they're expecting to break ground sometime in October. I say it's not directly being administered by the city. It's a federal grant that's gone through the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission, and they are acting as project managers for the intermodal facility. There'll be two large pods built off of an interconnecting corridor, 120-foot long corridor that will act as spurs for the bus lines, and there'll be a variety of services on each end of that corridor. Let me get my little cheat sheet here so I can list some of them. At the end of one pod, there'll be a restaurant, a newsstand, a restroom, and a sitting and eating area. At the other pod, there'll be a ticket agency, a taxi stand, a van provider space, and then on the second floor, they'll be having administrative offices. So it's certainly going to improve that section of Main Street, Lower Main Street area. And if we're fortunate enough to get the connector, it would come right up through that area, and it would really make it a transportation hub for the city. Feeding into that plan, if we want to move up geographically, move in a northerly direction,
right
a orderly direction. This area where you can see the footprint for the existing abandoned and vacant Simon's steel and saw factory is the site at which, after an extensive period of search by a fire station site selection committee, is the site that they determined would be the best location for the construction of a new central fire station. From a locational point of view, from a strategic point of view, it gives access to the critical areas of the city that the fire station would need, central fire station would need to have access to. Once the committee made that recommendation and the city was able to gain site control for that site, we began to make some plans for trying to get a new facility constructed there.
Right.
For those people who aren't familiar with our current central fire station, it's in very, very substandard physical condition, and it desperately needs to be replaced as soon as we possibly can.
Now, you talk about the improvements downtown, but are you not, in fact, either in competition or working in opposition to the other organizations that are trying to bring improvements to downtown?
To the contrary, these improvements really have been part of a process that's been going on for 2 or 3 years that's involved an association of Lower Main Street businessmen and the Ward 5B Neighborhood Association, which has been meeting regularly over the past 2 or 3 years and which has actively participated in the process of reviewing plans, coming back with neighborhood input on those plans, and generally I think we've had support from all of the different elements of the neighborhood.
So then your office is working in conjunction with the other organizations as opposed to working in opposition?
Yeah, a plan like this ultimately can't succeed if we don't get people involved at the ground level, and I think with the councilor's help, she's attended a lot of those meetings, we've been able to communicate or have communicated to us the concerns of the neighborhood and try to respond to those needs.
Councilor, let me ask you this question, and it can be considered to be another political question. Do you have political aspirations beyond this point?
At this point, I feel that it's important to do a good job in what I'm doing.
You've been doing that for 6 years now.
And that's okay. I do have another job. I'm a guidance counselor with the city of Leominster, and all things do have to balance. And at this point, I feel that it's important to do a good job with a small area rather than do a job that I wasn't as proud with maybe a larger area, and where I can really concentrate. And as you've said, I've been here for 6 years now. Do I know the area very well? I certainly do. Do I know about the things like water pipes? Do I know where the problem areas are? Do I know the areas of the that are transient and changing in population? Yes, I do, and also at this point, I feel that I have a lot of my time invested in some long-range plans, and that I would very much like to see those through.
Okay.
That part of this plan of opening up this corridor, if we could take the spur off I-190 that would just drop off or end off on Lower Main Street, North Street to be widened all the way up to the college, and those plans are very much on the books. We are not talking pie in the sky anymore. We're talking about things that are actually happening. I believe Larry mentioned a tapestry of things, and it very much is a tapestry of things that are happening. The intermodal section, the intermodal building is happening. The college has, or is in the process now, of purchasing the playground that you see at the top of the map here.
It actually shows the improvement.
What is that playground? What's the name?
That's the North Street.
That's the North Street playground. That piece of property has been very attractive to the college for a number of years. Parking in the area to anybody who lives in the area or to anybody who goes through the area in the day has always been critical. And it's been even more impacted now by a recent state law that says that the state college can't tell any of its students it can't bring its cars anymore. In the past, the college students used to only be able to bring their cars if they had job student teaching. Now they can all bring their cars. They needed increased parking. The college really needed that area, so the college purchased that, which is going to allow us to do improvements in the Green Corners area of North Street. So in fact, we're going to be moving the playground down. It will be enhancing it and upgrading that playground. And all of this has been done in conjunction with the neighbors and the businessmen in the area.
You're watching Point of View. Our telephone numbers, call-in numbers here, 343-3130. You may call us and ask any question you want to ask. You have given me a rather extensive answer there, Councillor, but I'd like to get back to my original premise of the question, if you don't mind. And that is, I'd like to ask you the same question but in a different form. Do you have political aspirations beyond being a councillor?
At this point, no.
No. Okay.
At this point,
short
no.
answer. Okay. But maybe at some point later on.
I guess there's always a future.
Of course, yes. Lara, let me ask you this question, get back to your office. We talk about that playground up there, the North Street playground. Are there any improvements that are on tap for this particular playground?
Well, that playground would ultimately be owned by the college.
Right.
They would remove the existing structures, which are currently in very poor condition.
Of course.
They would construct a new, I believe, 2-story parking facility for the students there. As part of the sale of the playground to the college.
Who owns it now?
The city currently owns it. It's a playground, and because it's an approved playground, it has to the sale of that playground has to be approved by the state legislature.
But you are going to be dislodging a lot of kids that use that playground.
And that issue certainly came up in the neighborhood meetings and during the discussion. That's why this issue has in fact been discussed for years, because the college has wanted to purchase that for years. As an accommodation to that need, what is going to happen, what is planned, is that the proceeds from this sale, which will be significant.
What do you mean by significant?
We're projecting about $165,000 will be used to invest in as expand that existing park to accommodate for the fact that we'd be losing park space. We would be installing a new basketball court and facility right on the corner, across the street, across Green Street, on the corner of the site that's formed part of the former Simons building site. So in terms of net area, we're losing a little bit of space. We're doing modern state-of-the-art facilities within the same neighborhood, and that will actually provide a safer, better environment, play environment for the kids who are currently using the North Street playground.
So it's a matter of transferring them from A to B.
Exactly.
Better facilities.
Yes.
And when do you foresee that this will be done? The new facility will be coming online?
Well, the only thing holding this up at this point would be the actual sale, which has to go through both houses of the legislature, because again, it's a sale of city-owned parking. And in fact, we heard from Councilor Dogan's office yesterday that the House has approved its portion of it.
And how long after the sale has taken place that you plan on putting that new project in place? A year, 2 years, 5 years?
We would hope that the sale will be approved in the next couple of months, and that we will have already begun preliminary planning for it, and that we'll be able to bid that work for next spring and be able to actually begin the work next year.
I'd like to be able to answer this if I
could.
Go right ahead. Is that we are concerned, the mothers in the area are concerned that the children will have a play space, and that we didn't want it to be in transition in the middle of the summer, so that whether the playground is at its current location or at the new location, the children will certainly have a playground this year. And if we could move that after the end of the play season, so that it could open up possibly next summer, that we would be looking towards that. Also, another improvement is that we are going to have playground directors in the North Street area this year, which we have not had for many years, is that we feel that there are more children in that neighborhood than there are in other neighborhoods, and that neighborhood warrants playground directors for organized activities throughout the summer. And also that other green area is also going to include the State College new gymnastic facility.
Councilor, let me ask you this question. One of my biggest concerns as a resident of the city is summer coming up. What plans do you have, or what plans are there for the youngsters of the city for the summer?
The pools will be opening up. We have some plans here. I don't know if we're going to have time to introduce them to you, but we do have
just quickly show
we
it.
do have plans for the very near future for an
can get-
Olympic-size pool in the Coolidge Park area. However, that will not be available this year. Both of the pools will be open this year. The tennis courts are ready at Park Hill. The tennis courts are also being enhanced at Goodrich Street. The playground directors will also be, I believe, on 5 playgrounds this year, so there will be organized activities. Camp Cogsall will also be functioning this year. Cogsall Park is open this year, and certainly we would like to have enough of activities. There will be concerts on the Common. There will be a number of concerts at Cogsall Park that are also coming up, and certainly we'd like to have enough of activities so that we don't see some of the acting out behaviors that we did see at the very beginning of the summer last year. We also have our walking patrols in the college area, and those are permanent, stable patrols in the area, so that the outbreaks and the fires and those types of things we saw at the beginning of last summer, we hope are
We do have a
things of the
call,
past.
so let's go to a call right now, okay? Go ahead, caller, you're on Point of View.
Yes, I really enjoy your show. I think it's very informative.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to call up in full support of my ward councilor, Joan Freedman,
Oh, thank you.
and to tell you that she's been doing it for a number of years, and that I think she's totally effective in terms of our ability to take care of the needs of our ward. I know I've only spoken to her a few times. There was a couple of times when I did address her directly in terms of the condition of my road and a stop sign that was addressed. And both things were taken care of in a very timely fashion, and I'm really glad that we
I
have...
thank you very much for calling. Could you just give me your first name? So I know
Dan.
Pardon
What is
me?
it?
Dan.
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 Thank
Dan, do you have another question for Counselor?
Yes, also, when there's, I'm not really familiar with Mr. Casassa, but when it talks about the need for a connector to a major highway infrastructure, this is really something that has been needed for a long time, and I think it would really boost the overall infrastructure of the Fitchburg and its accessibility to the transit system for the whole state. I think it's really been needed. And if you look to the north of us, in terms of the way Lowell has been set up, Lowell has a very similar connector for 495, and it's the Lowell connector off of 495, and it has been able to integrate the community into the infrastructure of the highway system, and I think it's a very similar thing that what you're suggesting here for Fitchburg, and I would applaud if you could move this to the next level and make this reality.
Yeah, Dan, if you could give me a call at some time, I could certainly use some help with this. I have been trying to swack away at this for a number of years now. We do need to apply for monies that are outside of the city, naturally, and if we could have some sort of a swell of support for this, it would help us to move forward on this idea. And also, I guess, in the very long term, the very long run, is that I don't foresee that connector stopping in Fitchburg. What I would like to see is it go on, and go on even further north, maybe even up to Nashua, so that the people from Fitchburg could go north and south, and people could come from the north, come south down to Fitchburg. And those are the types of plans that that I have, and that I could see happening, as long as we can get some effective people to advocate for us.
Dan, thank you for calling.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And keep on watching Point of View. Larry, let's get back to the improvements that we're talking about in the city here, and that is, what about housing improvements? We talk about the connector, we talk about parks, but what about housing?
Well, actually, obviously, because it's a densely populated neighborhood that is primarily housing in nature, there are significant plans in place for the neighborhood. We have limited resources available to actually implement some of those plans, but Working through the Mayor's Housing Task Force, we've identified those properties, especially the multifamily properties that have been pretty much abandoned by their owners and that are in dangerous condition, and targeted some of those properties for demolition. Ideally, the properties that we do target for demolition are properties that are on very, very small parcels in areas that don't have adequate off-street parking, so that with their demolition, when the city then puts the parcel up for sale, after it becomes owner of that parcel, it can sometimes serve as off-street parking for abutting structures and make them more economically viable. That's one part of our strategy. The other part is to provide funding to make needed improvements to the housing stock that is viable and that can continue to serve as affordable housing for residents of the neighborhood. We've proposed just recently, we've submitted a proposal to the State Office of Communities and Development for the Housing Stabilization Fund, which allows us to apply for up to $700,000 for funds, which we did apply for.
Just for housing improvement?
Just for housing improvements, specifically for this neighborhood area as part of the overall strategy to improve this neighborhood. What that would enable us to do would be to provide additional incentives for first-time home buyers to purchase properties in the neighborhood and to agree to live in those properties as their principal residence. And we provide the funding not just to acquire the properties, but also to provide rehabilitation so that they're in good condition and they won't have to worry about problems with the property for the coming years. Right. That would be worked on with the Community Development Corporation of Fitchburg, and Fitchburg State College, as part of their effort to improve the neighborhood, has agreed to provide various incentives to people who live in the neighborhood who are willing to make improvements to their property by offering free tuition credits, up to a certain number of tuition credits. They're also offering career counseling, resume writing skill, access to the library, and to all of the various functions and activities that the college offers. So when we roll that into a package that includes a number of financial incentives, we're hoping to make the neighborhood more attractive to people, to make them consider living in the neighborhood and making it their primary residence.
Sure. You're watching Point of View, and the numbers are on your screen right now. You may go ahead and call 343-3130. Councilor, you mentioned earlier on the onset of the program about the drug education program that we do have here in the city. Let me ask you this question. Are you concerned about the pervasiveness of drug in the school system?
Well, as I said to you before, I'm a guidance counselor in Leominster. I'm a guidance counselor at an urban middle school. If I told you that I was not concerned about the pervasive use of drugs in our culture, there would be something that, that there was very much wrong with me. That I've been dealing with children in my entire life, and the effects that drugs have, on their families and on the community, have become very much ingrained and are probably going into second generation at this point. And certainly I am concerned about that. I'm concerned about the limitations that provides for our children. I'm concerned about the negligence and the abuse that comes from such from life in such a community, and that we need to take steps, in a rather comprehensive way. The DARE education was one of those things. We also need to take actual action on the streets with enforcement. The courts have to be sensitive to this as well. And so, yes, I guess if you want a one-word answer, that yes, of course I am, because I have seen the short-range and the long-range effects on drugs on our children.
Are there programs in the city that deal with this particular issue? If a child is caught with a drug in school, are there programs, treatment program, early intervention programs around that they could acquiesce?
Okay, in Fitchburg, there are a number of programs, certainly, that the children can become involved in. Most of them are run through Herbert Lipton Mental Health, and the Luck Crisis Center has also provided a great deal of number of programs to our children, particularly our children in crisis. That if a child is found with drugs on his or her possession, that child, I believe at this time now, has to go through an expulsion hearing for the school department to determine whether to allow that child to ever get back into school or not. If it's something that is suspected And most of the time, most of the issues that we have with children are that we suspect that there might be some drug use on the part of the child. Nothing that we can prove. That the appropriate course of action at that point is to contact that child's parents, to speak with the parents to see if we can effect some sort of private counseling with that child.
To the best of your knowledge, I don't know if you're a parent.
I have 2 daughters.
Okay, to the best of your knowledge as a parent and as an elected official for this city here, is crime on the incline or is it on the decline?
If you read the police statistics, various crimes are on the decline, various crimes are on the incline. The more violent crimes are on the decline, where things such as breaking into houses and those types of things are more on the incline.
Let's say, give you a scenario, if crimes are on the incline, what would you say to the voters of this community to sort of persuade them that even though crime is on the incline, that the police are effective in doing their jobs? What would you say to persuade them so they could believe you?
A number of things. First of all, that working with the Fitchburg Police Department has been one of the pleasures of my job. They are very well educated. They are extremely professional. I found them to be very human when dealing with individuals and with dealing with issues. I also would certainly encourage people to look closely at the fact that we have received money from our HUD grants to do additional policing, to pay for policing, overtime policing in crisis areas such as the College neighborhood and the Claiborne area. We have also received federal grants for walking police and cruises in crisis areas, and the police on the beat in Fitchburg has been the single most effective tool in this community that I have seen since my term in office. As soon as those police started walking the beat in the College area is not an overtime patrol. The College area is a consistently staffed patrol that is there around the clock, around the calendar. As soon as those police were on the beat, the neighborhood changed. People started walking around in the sidewalks again. People started taking more pride, I believe, in their properties. The police as individuals have taken concerns in the young people in the area. They're the ones that shoveled the basketball courts. They're the ones that put up the basketball nets. Huge improvements.
Larry, over the past 5 years or so, there have been many small businesses that have gone out or have taken the bite to the economy. What is your office doing to sort of revitalize small businesses here in town?
Well, we've been working very closely with the effort to both conduct a survey, an inventory of the downtown Fitchburg area, and to assist Hyatt Palmer Inc., which is the consulting firm that was hired to assist in developing a strategy for the downtown area. We committed significant staff resources and helped them with some of the raw data that they needed for that plan. In addition,
can you hold your answer so we can get to a call?
Certainly.
Okay. Go ahead, caller. You're on Point of View. Hello, caller. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Go ahead, caller.
How you doing, Johnny?
I'm doing well. What about you?
This is George. How you doing?
George, I'm doing well.
You supposed to call me back and you never did.
Don't worry. I have your phone number in my office, and I'll be calling you back.
Okay then.
Okay. Any questions for the counselor or the planner?
No, I just want to compliment Joan. I've been knowing Joan Freedman for a while. She's been doing a great job. She's one of the city's councilmen I'm very happy to work with sometime, you know. She's a good lady. She's a real good lady.
Thank you, George.
But George, if you don't have a question, do you have a comment or a suggestion for the counselor or for the planner?
Well, I think I have seen a difference in Ward 5B in that area up there. And I just wanted to tell her, keep doing a good job up there. It's a lot of changes been made.
Thank you very much, George. You too. This is George that's been involved with our park department and has also been involved with our teen center. As soon as I met George, I realized he had an awful lot of energy that he has put towards the children of our city. And thank you, George.
All right.
George, thank you much, and I'll be back in touch with you, my friend.
All right.
I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Counselor, we need to get back to another question. You know, in preparing for this program, I did a little research on my own, you know, and This individual may not be a constituent member of yours, but he said, ask her this question anyhow. Why is it that when it's about election time, you see roads being improved, everything being improved, or whatever it is? So just ask her that question. Why is that?
Well, I don't think that it's, there's a real good answer to that. It's because at a local level, elections are every other year.
Right.
And so it's not like, we're elected once every 4 years and that you only see improvements every 4 years. Fact of the matter is that we do roads every year. We spend an equal amount of money every year on it, and just happens to be an election year every other year. So that's probably a real basic answer to that.
Lara, let's get back to your answer before we took the call about what is your office doing to improve the revitalization of these businesses that have gone out.
Well, in addition to helping with the actual data that was needed to conduct the study on recommended improvements for the downtown area, for this coming year under the Community Development Block Grant Program, the Mayor and the City Council have approved a $20,000 grant that would be used to assist in the hiring of a downtown coordinator whose principal responsibility would be to work with small businesses to market available vacant downtown store space and to try to help with the actual implementation of a revitalization strategy for the businesses in Lower Main Street. Obviously, some of the problems are problems related to those that we were discussing earlier: access, convenience, parking, those kinds of issues will be worked on in a separate arena. But at least we're starting the implementation process now by getting a downtown coordinator through Pride Incorporated,
Right.
which is a nonprofit business that helps beautify Main Street and manages the parking garages. And we're hopeful that that will be the first step in the process of revitalizing the Main Street area.
Joan, we mentioned earlier on about summer recreation for the youngsters of the city here. What are you also doing about summer employment for these youngsters?
The personnel office now is taking applications for
At City Hall?
right for playground directors and also for lifeguards, and we always have a need for lifeguards.
Oh.
So I would put out that appeal there. We were not able to open Coolidge Park on time one summer simply because we didn't have enough of lifeguards apply. So that if people would like to apply for their jobs to be playground directors, which I believe is a wonderful job for our young people. Also, we're hiring some part-time maintenance people in the DPW to help with mowing lawns and that type of thing. So there are some summer jobs available for the city.
So then the youngster out there who's listening tonight, or watching I should say tonight, can always go to City Hall, get themselves an
I would
application.
encourage you to go to City Hall, particularly if you're a lifeguard.
All right. Let's get back to another issue that we need to talk about, and that is once again the pervasiveness of drugs within our culture here. And of course, this community is not immune from the drug situation here. We do have a DEAR program here in town. Is that good enough? Do we need something beyond the DEAR program? In other words, what I'm saying, do we need more parental involvement with their youngsters?
I have seen a huge improvement with parental involvement, and as I said, I've been a guidance counselor for probably 20 years now, and I've seen a huge improvement in parenting skills, particularly in fathering skills. Where when I started to become a guidance counselor, I believe that there were a lot more families that were being run by just mothers. Do I believe that parents are becoming much more involved in their children? Yes, I do. I think that we have seen what a generation of selfishness probably has done, and that our children have paid a heavy price for it. So certainly parenting skills are something that I work to enhance on a daily basis in my job.
We talked about all the improvements there should be talked about, but we did not talk about water and sewer improvements. Larry, anything on that?
Well, as part of the overall plan for improvement of the neighborhood, we recently applied for $200,000 to the Environmental Protection Agency for a special grant program that is involved with cleanup of hazardous waste sites, which the Simons building site is, and we do have plans to clean that site up. So we are applying for $200,000, which would make water and sewer improvements along North and Main Streets and would connect two existing systems and create water flow and pressure improvements in the entire neighborhood, as well as assist with, if we do construct a new central fire station facility here, provide adequate water pressure in that area. So that's one more resource that we're pursuing that would be part of the plan.
What about some of the so-called historical buildings that have been closed in the city of Fitchburg? Are there any plans to sort of revitalize those?
Well, if we're talking about housing, we already, as part of our housing improvement program, will prioritize improvements that would involve historic renovation of properties, because obviously some of Fitchburg's historic structures are part of its history, part of its culture, and we're trying to do what we can to preserve that because it's unique and it dates back to the previous century. So yeah, we do provide incentives. What we'll do is we'll try to encourage the owner to make the improvements that would retain the character of a property, even if it's at somewhat greater cost, by providing a greater financial incentive for them to do that.
Right. What about, Joan, what about the human service providers here in the city, like Luck and Three Pyramids and so on and so forth? Do you have any plans to see that these particular institutions get expanded beyond their current status right now, to reach out a bit more than they have been reaching out?
Those are private
Non-profit?
Private agencies that are governed by boards of directors. Do I try to work with Three Pyramids and Luck and Mental Health and all those agencies that are in my area? Certainly, I would like to make them feel welcome, because I think that that's the type of a community that I want to live in. You know, I want to live in a community that can deal with all of its people, young, old, and so that certainly I would like them to also feel that they are part of the neighborhood. And in fact, the kids from Luck are very, very active in our neighborhood. The kids from Luck always come out during our neighborhood cleanups. Kids from Three Pyramids come out for the cleanups. The kids from the college come down for the cleanups. So that I don't have any say in if they expand or not, but can I try to make them feel welcomed and that they're part of the process? Certainly I can.
You're watching Point of View. My name is Johnny Johnston. My guests tonight are Joan Freedman and Larry Casassa from the Planning Office, and our numbers are on the screen, 343-3130. You mentioned earlier on about an intermodal form of transportation linking the Fitchburg State College to downtown somewhat. Was I hearing you correctly on that?
Well, fairly correctly. We're talking about a connector to Route 2 that would lead into an area that will involve an intermodal facility that is currently being planned for and will be constructed, we're hoping, later this fall. And that facility will tie in the rail and bus services in the area and make improvements in that area that currently has a couple of older buildings off of Lower Main Street by 150 Main Street and where the current train platform is. So that will involve a significant improvement and will create sort of a transportation hub if we can also create the access for vehicles in that area.
Okay, Joan, let me ask you this. You mentioned that this year is an election year.
Yes.
It's also a mayoral year too. If there are two Democratic candidates going up against each other, I'm not asking you to tell me which one you'd support. Of course, you would support one over the other.
I would imagine so.
What would be the reason for you to support A as opposed to B? Would it be a matter of philosophy or political differences?
I think that what we look for in our local leaders, more than sometimes a philosophy, and even more than sometimes a voting record, is a matter of style. That I would be looking towards somebody that could open up government to all of its people. I'd be looking for towards somebody that was accessible, towards somebody that enjoyed working with different types of people, had a very open door policy. That's the type of an individual that certainly that I would like to see being mayor. Somebody that also had a sense of the future.
We had, many weeks ago, we had Commissioner Burke here on this program here, and I asked him a question. I think I'd like to ask you the very same question too, and that is, if there's an issue that was coming up and your voters said you should vote a particular way, but you feel morally that you should vote the other way, who would you listen to? Would you listen to your conscience, or would you listen to your voters?
This comes up very often, Johnny, and on those issues that affect a limited amount of individuals, and those individuals feel very strongly about it, that certainly if it did not affect the greater population, say for example a stop sign or something like that, that people in the area very much wanted, but that maybe I did not feel that there was a strong need for, maybe somebody from our public safety departments didn't feel there was a strong need for, but the people in the area said we need it. I think that you've got to listen to the people in the area. But say for example on an issue that affected the larger population, and I'll use the issue of the high school as an example, where clearly the population was working against that vote went down by a 2/3 vote, but I did feel very strongly, and you risk your reputation, you risk your next election by how strongly you would advocate for an issue. But on issues like that, then of course that I have gone with my conscience for what I felt was for the greater good of the community.
Let me take you to a couple of national issues, even though this one has been passed. Let me get your thoughts in about 30 or 45 seconds. Oklahoma situation, what are your thoughts on that, even though it's in the background?
The Oklahoma situation certainly is a tragedy by madmen. By madmen, and I don't feel that there's a very big issue whether they were domestic or if they were from overseas. I don't understand why people are making a very big issue that they're so absolutely appalled that this was done by somebody that lived in America. I don't see where it makes any difference at all. It was an evil act.
1996 will be a presidential year What are one or two of the major issues that you see coming up in 1996 in the presidential elections?
I think public safety still looms as number one. I think that there are too many people that don't feel safe. I think that education continues to be an issue. I think that medical research also continues to be an issue.
So you see those as some issues that the presidential aspirants have to deal with?
They would have to if they wanted to get elected.
I see, okay. Larry, I noticed that we're sort of running down on time. Tell us what plans do you see for the future of Fitchburg that should be in effect right this moment? Can't wait.
Well, we probably have a long wish list of things that we would like to see
Give us a
happen.
number one, number two.
For the city as a whole.
Yes.
That puts me on the spot a little bit. I mean, I certainly think that the connector that we're talking about would certainly be something that would benefit the entire city, and that would be a critical improvement. I think the major construction projects proposed for a new fire station and for a new high school are also very high on the list, I think, in terms of city needs and city benefits. So off the cuff would have to mention those as two issues. I don't know if the councilor would like to add.
Yes, I'd like to ask her the same question too. What are the number one or number two issues that you see that is needed right away?
The number one issue, I would say the number one practical issue would be the connector. The number two issue, and perhaps it should be the number one issue, is I believe that we're dealing with an image problem in Fitchburg. I think that we have to send a very strong message that our neighborhoods are improving, that we are working very, very hard to get back business and industry in the area. And the fact of the matter is that we have a very good shot at being an all-America city.
So let's not waste time then. Let's go to whatever needs to be done.
And we're working on it.
All right. Now, we have just a minute or so left. My director is saying we have that time. If you have a number one concern at this point in time, other than politics, other than planning, what would that number one concern be right now?
My number one concern, besides my family?
Education for the kids, or drugs, or whatever it is. Speak to the camera as a mother, not as a politician, to the youngsters out there that are getting in drugs and getting themselves in trouble today. So you have
Number
30
one
seconds.
issue is talk to your parents. Listen to your parents. Listen to the people that care for you. Listen to your parents. Listen to your teachers.
Larry, what about you?
Well, that's certainly good advice. I would also add to look inward, to trust yourself and to believe that you have a future, that in fact there are going to be opportunities out there for you, but that you have to pursue them.
Very good. Joan, I really thank you, and I appreciate you coming in here on Point of View.
Thank you
and Larry, I
very much
want to
for
thank you
having
so
me.
very much for coming
Nice
here
meeting
tonight,
you.
and it's
Thank you,
good seeing
Johnny.
both of you. You have been watching Point of View. My name's Johnny Johnston, and we'll be with you again on Point of View next 2 weeks. Thank you for calling, and thank you for watching. Good night, and God bless.